Caroline, thank you so much. I always appreciate being with you in this space. Actually, many people who know me through this platform know that this is my very favorite platform to teach from and with. I'm a huge supporter of Sangha Live and everything that Sangha Live is offering the world. So I'm honored to be part. Those that know me might notice that my background is a little bit different. I am on Whidbey Island at the moment. I came up to have a little writing retreat, and this is my teaching break in the midst of my writing retreat. And I'm really enjoying the process of writing. I'm working on a book for adults now. Many of you joined me when I shared my kids' book about mindfulness through this platform. And it's been such a joy to see that kids' book, which really I like to say is for ages 9 all the way up to 109. It's just been a deep joy to see that book end up in different hands of people I've never had the opportunity to meet, and to just feel that ripple effect of, well, I think of that book as an invitation, to see the ripple of the invitation go out into the world, really inviting us to practice inquiry, coming back to the recognition of who we truly are. So if you haven't seen that kids book, do check it out, a kids book about mindfulness. And thank you for being here today, to all of you. It's so lovely to see so many names I recognize over on the sidebar. And so I know so many of you, and if you're here and we haven't had the chance to meet yet, I'm Caverly. I use the pronouns she and her, and yeah, thrilled and honored to be practicing with you today. It feels like a particularly important time for practice, although I'm having an internal experience of chuckle, because I think I say that almost every time I teach through this platform, or at least in 2020, every time I taught. I think I said that. You know, we've been up against so much collectively, and I believe strongly in the power of us coming together and practicing consciously being with what is together. So if you are located in the United States, you are likely feeling quite affected by the recent events at the Capitol. And if you're not located in the United States, you might be feeling affected by it. You might be feeling affected by many other things if you're not located in the United States. In particular, I'm present to the rise in COVID cases. And so I want to invite us today to approach the session with tremendous gentleness. It was interesting to me to see so many people comment on, yay, the end of 2020, when we were about to turn into the new year. And I felt a collective, like, may 2021 be different. And a friend sent me a meme the other day that said, well, this first 5 days of 2020 is not looking up. But I want to name that, because again, we're in this together. We're in this turbulence together. We're in this chaos together. And approaching what is from this place of togetherness, inherent belonging, connectedness, the reminder of our inherent okayness is critical during this time. So again, thank you so much. For those of you saying hello on the sidebar, sending peace and solidarity, thank you, Abbas, Ian, hello from Spain. Thank you, friends. Thanks for saying hi and for being together. We will start the meditation in just a moment. And before I do, I wanted to read a reflection that it's short, but I wanted to read a reflection that I wrote in preparation for today's call, because it'll shape the meditation. I often, when teaching offer experience first and then some kind of explanation afterwards. And that's very strategic. It's so that we turn to our direct experience for information and then maybe unpack it in a more cerebral way afterwards. Today, I want to go straight into the more cerebral aspect of things to set a frame of sorts, and then we'll drop into experience. So I wrote this just some days ago, and the Sangha Live just put it on their website, so if you want to read it later, you're welcome to check it out there. I sit to write this reflection only hours after Trump supporters stormed the halls of Congress to block President-elect Joe Biden's win. There are countless historic aspects of this day. In particular, though, I'm present to the way in which these primarily white-bodied protesters were treated. Being someone who lives in Portland, Oregon, I know all too well how Black Lives Matter protesters were treated following the murder of George Floyd. The difference is vast and severe. Prior to today, I had already decided on a theme for today's teaching, acting on behalf of consciousness. And about the topic, I wrote, as we move into the new year, most of us are ready to leave 2020 behind. So much hardship and for so many, much has arisen in the last year. Many of us felt more isolated, more separate than ever before. As we transition into 2021, rather than live and act on behalf of that felt sense of separation, how might we act on behalf of consciousness? How might we live on behalf of truth? This theme feels even more relevant and timely now. What is the cost of delusion? What is the fallout of perceiving that we are separate and then acting from that belief? We are watching these questions get answered in real time. In our weekly meditation group tonight, I was struck by how many people reported feeling overwhelmed, depressed, anxious, rageful. Of course, in practice, we are creating space to accept and be with such emotions. What if we didn't end there? What if we deeply explored these emotions that are arising? What if we deeply explored what these emotions are arising on behalf of? Do they belong to the separate self? What shifts when we recognize their rightful owner? I'm going to leave, there's a bit more, but I'm going to leave that for after the sit. That's the framing I wanted to offer for this meditation. We'll explore more as I guide it. So please come into the position that is most comfortable for you for this meditation. And I invite you to be gentle with yourself. You may wish to lay down for this meditation. I do hope that you'll stay awake with me. So if you're particularly sleepy, you might not make that choice. But I want to invite gentleness in the body as we settle in. I'd like to begin by inviting you to take 3 of the longest and deepest inhalations and exhalations you've taken yet today. There's something quite precious about the way in which we've all intentionally carved out this time to be together consciously, to knowingly lean into community and presence. Just reflect on that for a moment, all 202 of us from around the world, leaning in rather than distracting ourselves in this moment or avoiding what is, or feeding the story of isolation and I am separate by closing myself off somewhere. Speaking of being with what is, at the beginning of this call, I acknowledged that I'm on Whidbey Island to get some writing done. And I do have my German Shepherd pup, Dogen, Zen Master Dogen, with me. It's a very small little cabin that I'm using for writing. And to keep him hopefully delightfully occupied during our meditation, I've given him a bone. So if you hear any chewing in the background, that's my beloved Dogen. And I actually love the sound of it because hopefully it invites you to feel into a sense of contentment that exists within all of us at all times, even in the midst of turbulence. It's the sweet joy of enjoying fully something you love. For a dog, it might be a bone. And for you, hopefully, this is an opportunity to feel that subtle joy of knowing and loving your own being. Allow this meditation to be an opportunity to rest in the sweetness and the preciousness of your own being. Again, we've gone through quite a bit of trouble to be here. Trouble might not be the right word for you. Or for some of you, it might be trouble. You might have had to find childcare, and maybe that was complicated. But for some of us, it's just even making that effort to be together in this way. I do want to just acknowledge that deeply today. The effort it takes to show up. Just say thank you to that within you that did so. Now, with gentleness and tender attention, caring attention, notice what kinds of thoughts are present for you today. Not like a review of the thoughts that have been arising throughout the whole day, but today, now, what kinds of thoughts are here? Look to see, does it feel to you like these thoughts are arising on behalf of a sense of separateness? An example would be the thought, I'm anxious, or I'm overwhelmed. For whom does this thought, I'm overwhelmed, arise? If you were to give an age, we're making this up, but if you were to give an age to the part of you that has the thought, I'm overwhelmed, or fill in the blank for whatever thought you've gotten present to, I'm scared, or I'm depressed, how old would that part of you be? Let's say for a moment that this part of me who has the thought, I'm overwhelmed, or I'm scared, let's say that part of me is 4 or 5 years old. What might that 4 or 5-year-old do in response to that thought? I'm scared. Imagine this young part of you seeking the archetype of the mother. The mother representing wholeness. Traces of the mother are embedded in this child. This child knows union with its mother. So in reaction to, I'm scared, it turns to seek mother, union, safety, oneness with where it came from. Mother. Sometimes in practice, rather than allowing this child to return to mother, metaphorically speaking, we label thoughts as belonging to the ego and then spend energy, life force, trying to clear the mind, get rid of those thoughts, rather than recognizing who the thought belongs to, and then letting it naturally return to wholeness. So for the next few moments in silence, notice the thoughts arising, see the thoughts, rather than any energy towards, I'm going to try to push those out of my mind or even let go of them. Consciously invite returning. The union of child and mother. We can do the same with emotions. This is not an intellectual exercise. From presence, simply see what are the emotions that are arising on behalf of. Let's take an emotion like, I feel despairing. See and feel the way in which that experience of despairing, longs to be held. And I'm just now noticing a comment in the sidebar. Thank you so much for writing the question, what if mother was the monster? Thank you for writing that. It gives me the opportunity to clarify. This is a metaphorical mother. If you have or had a complicated relationship with your own mother, let that go. This is the archetype of the unconditional mother. The mother that embraces everything exactly as it is, loves everything exactly as it is. That's the mother the child's longing for. In your own life, as a child, that's what you longed for, but you might not have had the luxury of finding that in a physical being. All the more practice, all the more reason to practice now finding it in yourself. And in yourself, it equates in the universe. Thank you for writing that. Yes, Lori, the ideal mother. Thank you. So allow this emotion, whatever this emotion is, to return, to come running into the arms of the ideal mother. This ideal mother, this aware, present, unconditional mother is actually another way of speaking about pure consciousness for this meditation. So rather than allowing thoughts and emotions to stay contained and limited in your mind to the separate self, rather than walking around assuming they belong to this separate self, if they do when we're identified with them. I'm overwhelmed, I'm small, I'm limited, I am this body, mind. We're consciously teasing that belief apart from our experience. Notice in your experience. The rightness of these thoughts and emotions, returning to something much larger than that small sense of I, limited notion of me. You allow whatever's here to return to pure consciousness. From there, we can act, but not now. Now we're resting consciously. Now we're gathering, receiving, surrendering and being. The last 10 minutes of this meditation will be in silence, and I want to invite you to continue with this gentle practice. Thoughts arising, quiet noticing. What are these thoughts arising on behalf of? Are they arising on behalf of this small, limited, constricted sense of I? Maybe I'm 5 years old. I am terrified. Thoughts and emotions. The thought I am terrified comes with a whole set of emotions, sensations. All of that, thoughts, emotions, sensations, looking to see, who is this arising on behalf of? And then seeing all children long for the unconditional archetype of the mother. To fall into the arms of a beloved presence that sees and loves unconditionally. So just allowing for that returning for this last part of the sit. Tracing back to wholeness, falling back into wholeness. Being wholeness. Friends, thank you. I'm having again a good chuckle here because I see that Philip, you asked what is the clicking sound, and then Caroline, you responded, it's my dog chewing on a bone, and Zoe said I've been imagining a dog eating on the floor. So yes, friends, sorry if that was a bit distracting for anyone who missed it at the beginning. I'm in a very small little cabin, just me and my beloved dog Dogen, Zen Master Dogen, who's a German Shepherd, almost 1 year old, and he is quite full of energy. And I knew that I needed him to be occupied during our meditation, so I gave him a bone. And it's a small cabin, as I said, so it's you're hearing him delight in a bone. And so thank you for bearing with that. It's actually a wonderful symbol, though, isn't it? Because, you know, many of us, I'm not, biologically, I have not had children this go round, but many of you on this call are practicing in quarantine and COVID, practicing with children in the background, practicing being with what is. Maybe you're practicing, but also needing to be on call with work or fielding phone calls. So it does seem like an important metaphor. Our boundaries are being stretched. Perhaps at one point in time, maybe pre-COVID, we had the luxury to sort of close off, have perfect stillness, perfect quiet. And maybe you're quarantining in a scenario in which that's no longer the case. And we must, through practice, we have the opportunity, I should say, not we must, but we have the opportunity to find a peace that's not a fragile peace, a peace that has plenty of room for noise, a peace that has plenty of room for disturbance. And may we definitely be finding that kind of peace now, because there's no shortage of disturbance in our world. So thank you. Thank you for being with that, for practicing with that. I have much I'd like to continue saying about this theme today, but before I do, I was asked to make a few announcements. And one is I do want to give that reminder about the dana. I always remember to invite dana. When I'm doing my own retreats, I actually sometimes forget about it, but I have so much love for Sangha Live, so much desire to make sure this platform can continue to maintain, support our practices. And that can only happen through support. So do please give to that little, tap on that green button below me if you're able. And I also was asked to give a reminder about the class that I'm just about to start. And I was grateful. Caroline, thank you for giving me that reminder. I do want to underline how much I just love the curriculum of this course that's about to begin. So it begins on Tuesday. I can say even more about it at the end of this call. But do check it out. I specifically wanted to offer today's theme in relationship to this course, which is about awakening to the new year. Because for so many people, at this point, the thought of New Year's resolutions, it's like you don't even have a taste for that. Like this is not the year to be creating resolutions. If some of you have, no judgment, but many people I talk to, it's like that's just nowhere on the radar. And I do make a distinction between resolutions and intentions. Resolutions being the kinds of things we create and set from the sense of I'm separate, I need to do more, be more, have more. So resolutions often fall in that self-improvement camp place for me. I talk about intentions as something that we can create that helps us remember. So for example, what kind of intention might I, if you enjoyed today's meditation, what kind of intention could remind you the next time a strong emotion arises to ask, to pause, what is this emotion arising on behalf of? And then create some intention around supporting yourself into this experience of remembrance. So please check that out. I want to say more, as I mentioned, about this theme today. Allow me to just pull that up here. I'll just read some sentences again, which now hopefully have a little more context and meaning for you. I was struck recently by how many people around me reported feeling overwhelmed, depressed, anxious, even rageful. Of course, in practice, we're creating space to accept and be with such emotions. What if we didn't end there? What if we deeply explored what these emotions are arising on behalf of, as we did in the meditation? Do they belong to the separate self? And what shifts when we see who they belong to? So, to be clear, this is the part that I didn't read before the meditation that I want to expand upon now. To be clear, I'm not suggesting that we shun what we deem as arising on behalf of the ego. Quite the contrary. I'm referring here to the ego as the activity of the illusion of the separate self. Imagine that this separate self has traces of the memory of wholeness embedded within it. So that's where this image of the child having traces, the remembrance of being in the beloved mother's arms. Again, as folks pointed out, the ideal mother, the unconditional mother, in the arms of the unconditional mother. So imagine that this separate self has traces of the memory of wholeness, the memory of the unconditional embedded within it, rather than enhance the beliefs of the separate self through activity that reinforces the separation. What if we allowed these emotions to return to their rightful owner, consciousness itself? or in the case of today's meditation, the unconditional. Pure consciousness, inherently unconditional. And how would our world benefit if we practiced this collectively? So rather than enhance the beliefs of the separate self through activity that reinforces the perception of separation. So rather than fuel these beliefs, feed the beliefs. What if we allow these emotions, these thoughts to return to wholeness? Often with our attention, we feed those beliefs, those thoughts, the emotions, which increases and solidifies our felt sense that we are other than. Friends, I would love to open it up now. Anyone who's been on this call and knows me knows that my favorite part of this platform is the opportunity to engage with you, specifically if you can come on screen. I would love that. You can join me and Dogen, who's now talking to us. Anyone who has a German Shepherd knows that they're very, very talkative. Dogen is no exception. For a silent Zen master, for many of you might know Dogen was the founder of Soto Zen in the 1200s. He sure talks a lot. So please join me and Dogen by coming on screen if you would like to. I'd love to have an exchange. What's arising for you? And I will check the question box here. Oh, John, hello. This is John. John, if you're still in California, hello in California. You say, please come on screen if you'd like to, John. Oh, can you take a moment to show us Dogen? You know, I would love to. I'm fearful if I turn my setup at all, I'll mess up. I've got a microphone over here. And anyway, let me sit with that and see if there's a way I can do it gently that wouldn't cause too much disturbance. But Sharon, yes, I know. Hello, Sharon. I know you're quite a dog lover as well. And so maybe we can try that at the end. John, you're grateful for this truth, and yes, please come on. We've shared the screen before, so I know you're not too shy. But if today you have the technical capacity, please do come on. I'm grateful for this truth. Although it can be perceived in many different ways, it leaves footprints and can be discovered. Conditioning like the wind and rain blur the prints, but they are subtly awaiting to be found in the silence. I'll read that one more time. John, unless you can come on and we can chat more, I will look to see. Oh, and Caroline, thank you for posting a link to the course. So John, you say, I'm grateful for this truth. Although it can be perceived in many different ways, it leaves footprints and can be discovered conditioning. It can be discovered conditioning, like the wind and rain blur the prints, but they are there subtly, awaiting to be found in the silence. Beautiful, John. Yes. John, you said, yes, come on screen. I wrote this the other day, confused about. I want to make sure I'm following what you're writing, John. I think I am. It's just a beautiful image, the footprints. And so thank you, Caroline, for inviting John to join. But now that you say, I wrote this the other day, confused about, I'm wondering if there's more to what you wrote that I'm not grasping yet. So please do come on screen. I see that Caroline's invited you. And while we're waiting for you to come on, I'll just read. I see on the sidebar you also wrote the story of the windmill that click and the Zen master required students to meditate next to the windmill, despite the protests of the noisy windmill, knowing the windmill was the teacher. Beautiful. Yeah, that's very good. There's another lovely story about, I think it was Ram Dass, had a retreat, and it was in New York City. It was a retreat of people, and the place that he rented was right next to a fire station. And so these sirens were going off on a regular basis. And at one point, a student just got up infuriated and said, John, I see you're ready to come on. I think you have to accept Caroline's invite. So look for that, and then you'll just pop right on. So the student was just infuriated, and apparently Ram Dass said something to the effect of, oh, goodness gracious, I don't know if Ram Dass said goodness gracious, that's what I would say. It's just energy. The siren, it's just energy. Run it up your spine and enjoy it. So I love that story. Okay, Caroline, you're saying, John, I see you've accepted the invitation. Is anything happening? Okay, so a couple technical issues. John, a reminder, you'll want to not be in Safari. And so we'll see if we can bring you on. While they're working that out, feel free to write. Actually, I'd love to just write some words. Oh, you don't have Chrome? Okay, try Firefox if you have Firefox. Thank you. I'd love to see on the sidebar, please, if you would, and this is open to everyone, write a word, 2 words, 3 words of what you're present to in light of that meditation. What kinds of things are here now? What are you seeing? So please write, if you would, in the sidebar. What's alive? What's here now? What are you seeing? And now we're hopefully all seeing John. John, hello. Thank you for, this is beautiful. John, just before we start this exchange, we're hearing whole, perfect life, being, love, and forgiveness. I remember that I am the mother, contentment, quiet, calm. Hi, John, Charlie. Victoria, wholeness. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. And if you're not present to such things, remember there's no way to do this wrong. Unconditional love, unconditional. So this isn't about right or wrong. It's about naming a pathway. So if this doesn't resonate today, take it as an approach and try it in another time. Heart, calm, peacefulness, holding your inner children and parts with love. Wonderful. John, hello. It's just a delight to see you again. Are you in California?
Yes. Well, wonderful. Actually, I'm in Reno, Nevada today.
Okay. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. It's been a hot minute. And I'd love to hear what you're present to. If you'd expand on what you wrote, please.
Okay. I wrote that because I'm confused, especially in light of what's been going on. And last week, it seems that misinformation, deceit, dishonesty, lack of consensus is at the root of these misunderstandings and this conflict. And so I'm confused about how to manage to expose or to guide or help others recognize that there's delusion. And I know when you confront it directly, normally it reinforces it. If you suggest that the lies about the election were lies, there are people that are going to go deeper down their rabbit hole. And yet I think that we're in crisis to find some consensus about truth, that it's really important right now. And what I think that I try to do is to find some little bit of common ground, and then maybe identify where our beliefs begin to go in a different direction, where there might be some belief that you have or somebody else has or that I have that may not be very accurate at all. And of course, all of our opinions and beliefs have some degree of inaccuracy because they're subjective.
Yes. So, John, a few things. First, indeed, we're in a time where delusion prevails. We don't have to look far. Throughout our history, it has been the case that where there is delusion, great hardship, harm, suffering is trailing right after. I mean, the Buddha talked about that 2,500 years ago. He was obviously referring to different content. You know, the content shifts, but it's the same process, isn't it? We could boil it down very simply for the purposes of today's call. We get confused that we're separate from life. We suffer. We act from the distortion and the delusion that we're separate, and there's great harm and suffering that follows.
Yes.
This is just our current content, isn't it? Now, if we were to stick with today's theme, imagine for a moment that you were in the presence of a 5-year-old that was convinced that there were monsters under his bed. You were with me. You knew where I was going to go, John.
Yeah.
Would you spend time arguing that there is no such thing as monsters with this child? Would you become a broken record to try to agree on the truth that there are no monsters? Would that be your step one of the conversation?
Perhaps not. I think perhaps first step would be, hey, it's okay. We're okay. You're safe. There's not a problem. And then after the fear is calmed, then maybe we can talk about some reason. Maybe we can go under the bed together.
Now that's a beautiful image, isn't it? That's a beautiful image. Imagine a really stressed parent. Like if you're a parent on this call, you know that place of like an unskillful moment of parenting where you had no patience for what you thought of as your child's story. And you just yelled from the other room, there are no freaking monsters, get over it, or whatever, right? We've all had unskillful moments when interacting with children. So a moment where we weren't aligned with the unconditional mother, right? So we weren't the ideal mother. But that, John, is a beautiful image of the ideal mother, isn't it? Let's go under the bed together. We're okay. And what you're saying is important, John. You'd still want to clarify there really aren't any monsters here. That would be important to you, but it's not what you'd lead with. I hear you acknowledging that it would be more skillful to lead with, I see you. I hear you. I'm with you. It's okay. Let's explore this together. And the reason that seems important to reflect in a moment like this, John, is you can see at least in our country right now, the degree to which one side is flared up and saying this, and the other side is saying, but that's not true, so we're going to argue with you about this. Not saying that's bad or wrong, but when have such arguments or wars ever led to peace?
Maybe what we could start with when we're confronting what we can clearly see is delusional. Maybe what we could start with is, I care for you, I want you to be safe, and I want you to think it's all going to be okay. Maybe that's where we start. I care for you.
Imagine if now, let's say I'm meeting a Trump supporter. I can't imagine it will necessarily go over well if I start with, I care for you, right? Like they might be like, oh, I don't even know
Right.
you. Why are you saying this? Like,
I got
but
that.
imagine if that's what I was embodying.
Yeah.
Imagine if I was coming, you're a Trump supporter, I'm coming to you, and that's actually what I'm bringing, in a sense, energetically to the conversation. It's going to be a very different conversation than you have done this terrible thing, you're a bad, wrong person, I hate your delusion, so I'm going to fight with your delusion.
You might be able to suggest that they're important to you.
You might be able to suggest that they're
You
important.
might be able to get away with that. Maybe not from somebody who's really already in hate with you.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, my husband has this habit of, and commitment to listening to all the news. So for example, if something like this recent event happens, he'll listen to conservative radio and then progressive commentary. And so I took I'm up here, as you know, on this writing retreat, but when all of this happened, I took a page out of his book and I just watched a little clip on Fox News about what had happened. And it was so striking to me, John, that the narrative was quite similar. The narrative of our democracy is threatened. The narrative of, we're under siege. The narrative of we're not being treated fairly. And I offer that because we usually don't pause to look for what's under the content. And we don't often look to see that there's actually a similar process going on. Processes of fear, processes of I'm not going to get what I need, processes of I'm being threatened, processes of there's someone else to blame for my experience. So I don't need to look in here and tend to my experience. I can put all my energy into blaming the other. So processes of othering.
Yeah, absolutely. I do believe that that there are some significant differences as well, but underneath, they're first of all attacking what you fear. They're bringing that up to get your attention because they know that's what you'll pay attention to, certainly. And then they use that to condition you into what the way they see it, whether they're using information that's accurate or using information that's not accurate. Once they've grabbed a hold of your fear and got you to come in the door and listen, they may manage to do that conditioning that I'm suggesting that really kind of wipes away our ability to perceive what's real. Yeah.
Yes, and I think it's such an important time, John, to live our commitment to truth, which may mean, for me, for example, that means voicing the degree to which I'm not okay with white supremacy, right? So stepping forward with our experience of truth while holding this understanding of the deepest truth, which is, like it or not, we're all made of the same thing. There actually aren't these sides that are only true on the relative plane. What shifts when I am being an advocate for equality, for example? but I'm allowing consciousness, the consciousness of pure consciousness, the unconditional mother, to infuse that activity, rather than my sense of separation to infuse the activity. So it could be, so there's the activity, standing for equality, okay? Standing for equality, but infused by the belief and perception of separation is a very different experience than standing for equality and having that infused with the deep knowing and understanding of our oneness.
Yeah, I would suppose that maybe my fear is that there's so much delusion. That's the thing that invites me into the fear, is how do this many people believe this or that? How do they do that when it's obvious that there are inaccuracies? And so maybe that's where I get deluded.
Well, I think it's the place that I appreciate you naming, John, because you're recognizing it's the place for you to be practicing with now. How rather than being in resistance, shock, horror that there are this many million people who buy this narrative, might I find a new level of connectedness with what is, new level of acceptance and connectedness with what is, so that that knowing of the wholeness of things can infuse the way in which I do want to be a lighthouse in the midst of darkness.
Right. And it does seem that we have to work in this relativity and this absolute consciousness as well, in both places. And it seems to be in the world of relativity where we most often stub our toes.
I couldn't agree more, John. And we're seeing the fallout of practices that try to just leave that relative behind. Yeah. It doesn't, it's, if nothing else, we're in a time that demands the unification of our understanding regarding the absolute and the relative being one.
Yeah. Thank you, Caverly.
John, thank you.
Most of all, I just wanted to bring up how much truth is important and how much we need to accept one another and avoid the otherization of whether it's the political pointing of the finger, any pointing of the finger, and that it's that separation, that division that is undermining consensus and truth amongst people, that they can believe each other. And it's really pretty rampant right now.
Yes, yes, I agree, John. And I appreciate that this is coming up, because I want to underline, and that's not the same as us saying, so we just need to accept it all and, try to find common ground. And right, it's not to let go of our shared passion for living in a world that reflects our deepest understanding, a world of equality, a world in which white supremacy has nothing to feed off of and cannot thrive.
Well, we do. I would suggest, though, we do have to find that common ground before there's any communication. But in some instances, we must understand that the common ground is so small, perhaps, that any understanding may not come about except silent, maybe a more silent acceptance, not when something bad is happening, but a silent acceptance and wishing somebody well, maybe a little Tonglen, so to speak, towards that person that really is in the darkness.
Yeah, John, to me, what you're pointing at is the ultimate common ground is the common ground of our shared being.
Yes.
And that may not get talked about with someone that you're in conversation with, but we can embody the.
Probably not, but there are other things. There are other things. Because honestly, just like you said about the news media, I think most people underneath, they want the same things.
Yeah.
Or oftentimes there are a lot of the same things that are desired. They're just seen differently.
Agreed.
Thank you so much, Beverly.
Thanks. It's
so
lovely to see you again. Yeah.
again.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Okay. I see that there's some more questions in the box. Okay, great. I'd like, let's see. I'd like to hear you speak more about pure consciousness and the mother. Great. And then there's another comment. Let's see. Okay, so that was Rachel. And then there was someone chiming in saying, yes, I'd like to hear more about this. Rachel, I'm wondering if you'd be up for coming on screen. I would love to. I'm happy to speak more, but I would love to engage with you on this topic if you're open to it. So if you are, maybe let us know on the sidebar whether you can come on and whether you're open to it, Rachel. Because if you are, oh, good, Rachel, thank you. So Caroline, thanks for sending Rachel an invitation. Thank you, Victoria. I see your comment here. Caroline, thank you for inviting Rachel. And Heather, can you remind me of the question we might ask ourselves when sitting with painful feelings such as fear? Yes, the question, you find the way to word it that works best for you, but the question would be, who does this fear belong to? Hello, Rachel.
Hello, hi.
Hello. And just one more thing here. And so then, Heather, another way you could word it is, on whose behalf does this arise? Does this feeling or thought arise on behalf of a constricted, small, limited sense of I? Or does it arise on behalf of something else, something larger? Thank you. Rachel, hi. I'm so glad to see you. Where are you calling in from?
From Toronto, actually.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you're enjoying Canada. I think you have many people that are about to flee to your country.
Yeah.
But you've heard that a lot over the last many years, I bet.
Yes, but it's good. Yeah, so this was a new thought for me about the pure consciousness and that going into the mother. That was quite a thing. So what I wanted to understand more then is really just, I wanted to give you a chance to talk more about that. Like, why is pure consciousness the mother? Like, why is it that symbolism? And what is that thought about going to the consciousness to be the perfect mother? Why is that the intent or the goal?
Well, I'm happy to say more about that. I'm very enlivened by this topic right now. But first, tell me, did you notice, rather than staying with why, which sometimes takes us to our head a little bit, tell me anything you noticed in the meditation about what kind of experience you had with that imagery. And it's okay if it's like actually nothing, which is why I'm asking you to clarify.
So I'm the person who said, what if the mother was the monster?
Yes. Okay. So first you had to like let go of this idea that we're talking about an actual mother that might not have been unconditional. Right. So yeah. And I'm really glad you typed that in, because that was a good note to self for me. I really want to clarify that if I use this imagery again, we're not referring to an actual person here.
Right.
So what happened? What were you able to sort of set that aside then once I clarified, or did you still feel hung up on the mom?
So that's what was powerful about today, because initially I did get hung up on it, and then it caused a lot of sort of negativity in a couple minutes. But then as you clarified it, then it made me think about, yes, who do you go to for safety and comforting in these times, right? And not just in these times, but in times of trouble, shall we say. So
Yes.
you helped me get past that actually kind of quickly. So that's why but this is a new thought for me. So that's why I wanted to hear more.
Yeah, thank you. The way I like to think of it, and am I saying your name right? Is it Rachel?
It's actually Rochelle. It's French.
Rochelle, thank you. I'm so
Okay.
glad that you clarified for
Yeah.
me. Thank you
No
for
problem.
bearing with my ignorance
No
around.
problem. No problem.
So, Rochelle, think of how John was just saying, you know, at the core of it, we all really want the same thing. I'm speaking from that premise that we do. We all long to be happy. We all long to be loved. I can guarantee you there's no one on this call that could say, and come on screen later, I challenge you, if you really just can't say that you're someone who longs to know peace, the peace of your own true nature, that you long to belong and to be loved. So this image of the mother is just one way to speak about what we're longing to return to. So thoughts that are suffering infused thoughts, the activity of the mind that is suffering, somewhere within it actually has traces of where the thoughts came from in truth. It feels like thoughts came from this little individual suffering soul. But actually, everything arises in pure consciousness. So we can allow these thoughts to return to their true mother. So another way we could say this is we could let suffering be embraced and held by true nature. Everything's arising in true nature, but because of what we just talked about with John, we get confused. We fall for delusion. In a state of delusion, we feel disconnected from true nature.
Right.
So today was just one way to try to carve a new pathway that hopefully is useful to some or all, that a pathway that can remind us that these fragments of experience can return to wholeness.
Great.
And that yes, that in presence we can be ushering such return. Thank you.
That was very powerful and very healing. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so glad, Rochelle. I'm so glad. I confess that it wasn't until the meditation began that the image of mother even came. But I think it's an important analogy during this time, because hopefully it's helpful to imagine a small child who's upset, but they're looking for something, right? They're wanting to return to safety.
Yes, thank you.
Even if they're kicking and screaming, right? The mother saying, "Oh, come, I will embrace you." Right? Yeah. The child might still be running and saying, like, "No, I don't want to come." But there's you can see, even if you see a mother and a child having a tussle in a parking lot at a grocery store, you can see the connection there.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for coming on screen and saying hello. I hope to see you in the January course if it speaks.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great. Okay, great. So thank you. So as I mentioned, friends, hopefully we have time maybe for one more. If someone else wants to come on screen, it looks like Ting, if you'd like to come on screen, just accept the invitation. Oh no, okay, so Caroline, then you said, okay, we're out of time. All right, I tend to be a little relaxed about time. And yes, we probably should end right on time. So we only have 2 minutes left. So if it's not enough time to bring someone on screen, I'll just double check, read through the comments and questions here and see if there's any other one I can answer. Ting, I hope you'll take the New Year's course. I call it the New Year's course, but folks, it's really about aligning your life with your deepest knowing. And it's a course that offers pathways to do that. So there's the link again, Caroline, thank you. It's, I'm just so looking forward to having this course curriculum arise during this time. Again, the film, so they're film sections of the course, and then they're live sections that I will be inserting through the month. And I love the course material, but I'm particularly excited about how this course material will be enlivened during this time. So thank you. And yes, I'm seeing the requests. Charlie, thank you. I think I answered that one. The question we might ask ourselves, what is this arising on behalf of? Thank you, though, Charlie, for catching that. And okay, I have 1 minute left, and I hear that there's some friends here who would like to meet Dogen. I'd love to bring them over. I'm going to leave my setup, but I'll bring them over here. And yes, please join me for this month-long experience where we can focus on alignment and creating intentions that arise on behalf of our deepest knowing, rather than getting confused by resolutions that again just feed and keep in place a sense of separation. We'll never find liberation through that process. All right, let me grab Dogen. All right, Dogen, we got some friends here that want to say hi. Come here, bud. All right, let's see if this works. So this is Zen Master Dogen. Come here, bud. He's doing a big stretch. Come here. This is his bone that he's been chewing on. Dogen, you have friends that want to say hi. Okay. That's without knocking over a light and a microphone, that might be all we can get for today. But join me for this January course, please, friends. I'm so grateful to be here with you today. I'd love to have your participation. And thanks so much, Caroline, and everyone who's part of Sangha Live for making this possible. This was just a teaser, just a taste. Let's take this much deeper by exploring together for a month. Please sign up, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.